Chapter 1693. Brother Huang said that if I have the bloodline as a heaven's gift disciple, I could cure this disease. Thus he assisted me in becoming the wood element heaven's gift disciple to get rid of the disease. Gu Zijia's fingertips that in her sleeves had tightly pinched her palm. 2 months ago was also the time when Long Sai was abolished as a heaven's gift disciple. It seemed that after Long Sai was removed, Lan Jingyi took over his position right away. Perhaps Di Fui had had this idea for a long time. He had been planning very well for Lan Jingyi's future. Gu Shijio had been thinking of a way to help Long Sai restore his identity as heaven's gift disciple. She felt that since it could be abolished, there should be a way to recover it too. Therefore, recently she frequently disturbed the firmament stone to ask for suggestions. She also rummaged through all the books that she could access to find a method. It seemed that she was too naive. Di Fui had no bottom line when it came to matters that he cared about. When he cared about a person, he could even violate the rules set by the heavens. Heaven's gift disciple, shouldn't it be arranged by the heavens? How could he intervene in the ruling and not be afraid of being condemned? He was the god of this continent. But does that permit him to treat everyone like chess pieces that move according to his plan? The sudden feeling of sadness filled her heart. Her face was ashen. She told herself that she should not let herself be hurt by him anymore. However, her emotions overrode her rationale. Her heart was still in pain after knowing the truth. She stopped talking and quickly wrapped Lan Wei's wounds. As she was still outraged, her fingers trembled slightly. You can give her proper treatment once we leave. We should not stay here any longer. Let's quickly get out. Di Fui raised his hand to hold her sleeve. Use your teleportation technique. Shua. There was a tearing sound. One corner of Gu Zijia's sleeve was torn. She coldly said, "We should leave separately." She carried Lan Weihu and teleported away in the blink of an eye. Di Fui was speechless. Gu Zijia's teleportation technique was compelling. She teleported straight out of the complicated and strange underground palace. She met Lan Yu near the entrance of the underground palace. Lan Yu followed Gu Zijia's instructions and had been staying outside to coordinate with her. When he saw Gu Shijio come out together with Lan Weihu, he was relieved and greeted her in a hurry. How is she? She is slightly injured, but it is not too serious. Gu Shijio heaved a sigh of relief and glanced around. Where is Yin Chun? Lan Yu sighed. He ran out of patience. After you left, he reopened the entrance and went into it. Gu Shijio was speechless. Lan Wei's face grew paler. Yin Chun. She wanted to see Yin Chun. At the moment, Lan Yu was not the only one waiting outside. There were also Luo Zhanyu and Li Mengxia, as well as Long Sai. These people were summoned by Gu Shijio using the directed audio spell. She did not want to disturb Long Sai, so she did not call him. Nonetheless, it happened that Long Sai was drinking tea with Luo Zhanyu. Lan Yu wanted to carry Lan Weihu. Shijio, let me carry her. Lan Weihu saw Lan Yu's hands were reaching out, and her body subconsciously shrank into Gu Zijia's arms and avoided his hands. Lan Yu was speechless. Lan Weihu did not dare to look at the disappointed Lan Yu. After experienced turmoil, she realized that she always liked Yin Chun and wanted to marry him. Lan Yu was good to her, but she did not have any feelings towards him. She just treated him as a friend. She did not want to hide her emotions, so naturally, she did not want to let Lan Yu carry her. Gu Shijio could understand Lan Wei's thoughts. Chapter 1694. Gu Shijio said, her injuries still require treatment and should not be delayed. Instructor Long, can you take care of her? Gu Shijio then handed Lan Weihu over to Li Mengxia and said, Mengxia, can you please carry her and leave with Overlord Long? Li Mengxia would never reject an order from Gu Shijio. Sure. She took Lan Weihu over, and Lan Weihu was obedient this time. However, her eyes were constantly focused on the exit. Why did Yin Chun not come out yet? She hoped that he was not trapped inside. Long Sai asked Gu Shijio, are you okay? You look very pale. I'm fine, Instructor Long. I will hand over Weihu to you. Please help to heal her. Long Sai did not speak. Suddenly, he raised his hand to check the Gu's Zygius vein. Only after he confirmed that she was not injured did he let go of her hand. Do not worry. I will be responsible for healing Lan Weihu. Gu Shijio was relieved. After she got assurance from Long Sai, she knew that Lan Weihu would not have any problems. Lan Yu was trying to say something, but suddenly, the ground under the feet tremored like an earthquake. I'm going to find Yin Shun. Gu Shijio turned and re-entered the palace. Long Sai frowned. He knew her temperament well, so he did not try to stop her. However, Luo Zhanyu was conflicted, and he wanted to follow her. He was stopped by Long Sai. You don't have to go. With Zygia's current ability, she can protect herself from any danger. If you go in without knowing the situation, you will drag her down. Luo Zhanyu pondered on Long Sai's words for a second, and he agreed with him. Long Sai sighed. He still believed that Gu Shijio could come out safely. With his current level of skills, he was useless to her and could only help heal Lan Weihu to give her a reason to smile. Therefore, he left with Li Mengxia, who carried Lan Weihu. Lan Yu did not follow. He stood under a plum tree and looked at the plum blossoms. Luo Zhanyu patted his shoulder. Why aren't you following them? Lan Yu rubbed his nose and sighed. I think the person she doesn't want to see right now is me. This is the first time I am being ignored. Luo Zhanyu knew the story between Lan Yu, Lan Weihu, and Yin Shun, so he was quite sympathetic. Although the falling flower has good intention, the water may not accept it. In fact, you should not force her if she doesn't like you. Why would you want to break a couple just for your interest? When you should let go, just do it. Lan Yu glanced at him. Can you let go of your fiancé? If Lan Weihu had not run away, she would already be my wife. The point is that she ran away from you. This proves that she does not put you in her heart. Anyway, you're the king of Blue Fox family. Why would you want to force a girl like this? I don't think you have any hidden disease that prevents you from finding a good wife, Lan Yu sneered. You are the one who has a hidden disease. There are a lot of girls who want to marry me. He was just reluctant to accept the truth. The main reason why he wanted to marry Lan Weihu was to follow her father's will. Secondly, it was also helpful to him to improve his skills and spiritual power. Thirdly, she was the national master of the Blue Fox family. If he married her, it meant that he had more power in the Blue Fox family. Fourthly, he also liked Little Fox. He thought that she was cute and quite compatible to be his wife. Of course, Lan Yu's love for Lan Weihu was far less than Yin Shen's. He would never sacrifice his life for Lan Weihu. Chapter 1695. All of a sudden, the ground shook vigorously again. It felt as though it was a magnitude 9 earthquake. A few of them were not alert to the sudden change. Hence, they almost fell. Luckily, all of them were elites and quickly rose up to midair when they noticed something was wrong. The ground collapsed and cracked as the entire plum forest collapsed. Dust was flying up to the sky, and a loud collapse made everyone temporarily speechless. The scene on the ground looked like an apocalypse. Luo Zania's facial expression immediately changed as he witnessed the scenes below. Shijio was still in the underground palace. He turned around and was about to rush down to the ground, but Lan Yu managed to pull him back. You can't go. You'll be buried alive in there. I need to save my sister. Luo Zhanyu was panicked as he tried to struggle out from Lan Yu's grasp. Lan Yu's power had almost recovered, and his external ability was about the same as Luo Zania's. Therefore, Luo Zhanyu could not escape. She has already achieved a level 10 spiritual power. She should be able to teleport out, even if she is buried underground. However, you will die if you go now. Yinshin was stubborn, and look what happened. Do you want to give Shijio another problem? Luo Zhanyu was unhappy that Lan Yu lectured him. Although he knew that what Lan Yu said was relevant, that was his sister. He really could not calm himself in such a short time. Suddenly, a white light flashed across the dust with 2 people engulfed inside who shot up to the sky. Since the dust was too thick, no one could see who those 2 people were. Shijio! Luo Zhanyu screamed as he rushed over to check. However, when he arrived somewhere nearby, he realized that it was not Gu Shijio, but Di Fui and Lan Jingyi. The 2 of them looked fine. Di Fuyi's robe was still neat and clean, while Lan Jingyi was floating in a wizardry barrier behind him while she meditated. Luo Zhanyu was stunned. He grunted, "Di Fuyi, have you seen Shijio?" Di Fuyi frowned. "I thought she had escaped with Lan Weihu. Did you not see her? Her teleportation technique was the fastest way out of the underground palace. Di Fuyi could not even catch up with her. She had come out with Lan Weihu. However, Yinshin was still in the underground palace. He had gone in after you because he was worried. He didn't come out. Hence, Shijio passed Lan Weihu to Overlord Long and then went in again to find Yinshin. However, she appears to be missing." Di Fuyi's expression changed slightly because he knew how dangerous it was in the underground palace as he just escaped from there. The quake was not a natural disaster, but a man-made disaster. It was Mo Zhao who initiated the destruction mechanism after he escaped. All the blood vessels burst, and the blood from the blood vessels were corrosive. When he escaped, he witnessed all the guards who did not manage to escape turn into ashes as the poisonous blood spilled onto them. The explosion of the blood vessels covered all directions without missing any single spot. Thus, there was no place for them to hide. Di Fuyi might have suffered the same fate if he did not manage to initiate the protection array and rush out in time. Gu Shijio could perform teleportation. Hence, she would probably teleport out even if she could not find Yinshin, right? She knew it was dangerous, so she probably would not risk her life this way. Perhaps she had teleported tens of miles away. Hence, it was normal if no one could see her. Strangely, Di Fuyi was a little panicked. He took a deep breath and retrieved the jade tablet, which he always used to contact her. He dialed and waited for her to answer. However, the jade tablet was unresponsive after a few blinks, and then turned back to its original appearance. Di Fuyi's concern could be seen all over his face, and the fingers which he used to hold the tablet turned pale. Chapter 1696, there were only two possibilities in Di Fuyi's mind. One, she was entering a hazardous place, and she switched off the jade tablet because she was scared that she would be distracted. Two, the jade tablet might be damaged. Which one was it then? He remembered that her jade tablet was on when they both went in together. It did not make sense for her to switch off the jade tablet just because she needed to save Yin Shun. Was it the second possibility? He tried very hard to suppress his anxiousness and looked at Luo Zhanyu. "Could you try to contact her with your directed audio spell?" Luo's zaniest eyes were already red. "I've tried but failed." In other words, her other directed audio spell was also switched off or completely damaged. Suddenly, Lan Yu screamed in excitement. "Hey, I got hold of Yin Shun." Both Luo Zhanyu and Di Fuyi's eyes sparkled as they looked at Lan Yu. Di Fuyi took the directed audio spell from Lan Yu's hand. "Yin Shun, where's Shijio?" Yin Shun paused for a second. "I thought she had gone out to meet you. She just left right after she saved me. I thought she would go and meet you." In fact, Yin Shun was in danger not long after he rushed in, and he almost fell into a sea of blood after triggering a mechanism. Gu Shijio managed to contact him at the critical moment and successfully saved him with her teleportation. Since Yin Shun knew Lan Weihu was safe, he did not want to stay any longer. When he was about to go out with Gu Shijio, the entire palace was on the brink of collapse. Gu Shijio was very fast. Hence, she immediately teleported away with Yin Shun. Due to her panicked nature, she teleported 50 miles away with Yin Shun. Later, she asked Yin Shun to find Lan Weihu in Long Sai's place, as she still had something urgent to follow up. After that, she disappeared. Yin Shun missed Little Fox very much. Hence, he quickly contacted Long Sai. After getting his location, he immediately rushed over. While he was on his journey to meet Lan Weihu, he got a call from Lan Yu, and only then did he know that Gu Shijio did not meet up with Lan Yu and the rest. Where'd she go? Would she go to after Mo Zhao right away? Di Fuyi just got to know from Lan Jingyi that Rong Jialuo was the main culprit. However, he addressed himself as though he was a lord while Gu Shijio referred to him as Mo Zhao. If Di Fuyi was not mistaken, it seemed that Rong Jialuo had been completely possessed by Mo Zhao. It made sense that the Blood Underground Palace was built by Mo Zhao. Although Di Fui had never met Mo Zhao in person, he knew his kung fu quite well. Even if Mo Zhao had not fully recovered, an omen who had lived for a few thousand years was definitely not someone who could be easily defeated by a little girl like Gu Shijie, who only had a few decades of power. It was extremely dangerous for her to fight him alone. Perhaps there was not even a small chance for her to win. That was the first time Di Fui was so panicked that his fingers trembled in his sleeves. Lan Jingyi, who was engulfed in the wizardry barrier behind him, certainly sensed his emotion. She opened her eyes. Brother Huang, don't worry. She knows teleportation. She would be able to escape if she could not fight him. She could run very fast earlier, and we couldn't even catch up with her. It was terrible of her not to inform us after she came out. I think she's just trying to make everyone worry about her by hiding in somewhere. Before she could finish talking, a loud scream was heard. The wizardry barrier that carried Lan Jingyi cracked, and she fell helplessly from midair. Chapter 1697. How could Lan Jingyi survive if she falls in the sea of blood? Fortunately, a hand pulled her back, and she slumped into Lan Yu's embrace. Lan Yu was slow to react as he saw the mermaid fall from midair. He was lucky that she did not fall directly on top of him. He quickly pulled her collar and dragged her up to the ground. Unfortunately, Lan Jingyi's clothes ripped during the fall. She had only been given a robe from Di Fui for her to cover her pubic regions. Although the robe was quite big, Lan Yu unintentionally opened her top when he pulled her up. To make matters worse, her body slipped out from the robe and continued to fall. Lan Jingyi screamed again. Fortunately, Lan Yu was very quick this time. Hence, he managed to grab hold of her. However, he was stunned and quickly took a closer look because he touched something slippery. He had grabbed her fishtail as she hung upside down. It would only be a small matter if she hung upside down. However, she was naked. Lan Jingyi could not stop struggling because she was embarrassed and angry. Let go. Let go of me, you jerk. A gentleman should not look at something that did not belong to him and should not act impolitely as well. Lan Yu had his morals and standards and was shocked to be called a jerk. Well, he decided to close his eyes and let go of Jan Jingyi. Therefore, Lan Jingyi fell again. In her panic state, she finally formed a silk coil and hooked it on Lan Yu's waist. She then pulled forcefully and slumped into Lan Yu's embrace as she got up. Lan Yu was standing as straight as a pine tree to avoid any possible accusation again. Young lady, please behave yourself and don't simply submit yourself to me. The multiple falls had caused Lan Jingyi's wounds to tear open again. A lot of blood dripped from her wounds, and she almost fainted from the pain. Despite being in pain, she grabbed onto Lan Yu's belt because she was afraid to fall again. She begged with a trembling voice, save me. Lan Jingyi was not a very talented person. However, Di Fui made many pills with a secret recipe for her so that her kung fu would quickly upgrade. She was now at a level 9 spiritual power. Even though she achieved a level 9 spiritual power, her kung fu was rather lousy. As she was severely injured now, she could not even perform the flying magic technique and had to depend on someone else to take the lead. Otherwise, she would have fallen into the underground palace and turned into a puddle of water. To stay alive, she had to leave her image aside and grab onto Lan Yu. When she looked around again, she realized Di Fui was gone. He has gone to find Gu Shijie. Lan Jingyi was sad and quite mad too. Lan Yu did not push her down because Di Fui left a reminder to him before he left. Try to treat her wounds and keep her alive. Lan Yu did not have the guts to disobey Celestial Master's order. Hence, he had to keep her alive. However, it was really inappropriate or rather indecent for a mermaid to hang on his belt. Lan Yu truly believed that his image was valuable and he did not want to embarrass himself. Therefore, he threw a dress to her. Young lady, it's embarrassing to run away naked. Could you put on that dress? All right, don't throw your tantrum on me, or else he'll probably kick you off if I'm not happy. Lan Jingyi remained silent. Her face was flushed, and she did not dare to say anything else. Lan Yu could not form a wizardry barrier to carry her, and he was not willing to carry her as well. Thus he pondered. Chapter 1698 Lon, you could not form a wizardry barrier to carry her, and he did not want to do so anyway. In the end, he retrieved a band out of nowhere and tied it on her waist. Hence, he brought her along whenever he flew, as if he was pulling a kite. When he was flying in the air, he even kindly reminded her, "Miss, it's inappropriate for a man and a lady to have physical contact. Thus, this is the only way I can bring you along. Don't ever break the band. Otherwise, I might not be able to save you in time." The wind up above the sky was as cold as a blade. Lan Jingyi felt as though she was almost torn apart by the chilly breeze. That was the first time she had committed such a great sin. However, she had no way to escape. She had no guts to break the band, but struggled to hold it too. She wanted to cry, but she could not. Only cold sweat rolled down from her forehead like pearls. She felt depressed and frightened as she realized she was nothing in Huang Tu's heart. She was always someone easily replaceable, and she had never walked into his heart. But why would he suddenly treat her nicely over the past few months after having neglected her for several years? He even healed her chronic illness and made pills for her. He elected her be a heaven's gift disciple and also made a few of her other small dreams came true. She thought her efforts finally paid off. She thought he would finally see her. However, she had never imagined that she would return to her original state today. When Gu Shijio was missing, he immediately left her, and he did not even care about her injuries. Gu Shijio had gone missing. Di Fui has used all his tricks and resources to find her, but nothing worked. Di Fui had also searched the palace. The royal servants had no idea what was happening, but were only aware that their emperor had a private visit outside the palace. However, none of them knew when he would return. Every single spot in the palace had been searched by Di Fui, but he did not find any clues about Gu Shijio and Mo Zhao. But suddenly, he made a small discovery. There was a secret passage inside the emperor's bedroom that led to the secret underground blood palace under the plum forest. When Di Fui entered the secret passage, the entire place was filled with poisonous blood and the walkways were corroded. In fact, Mu Feng and the other messengers were confused. The Lord hardly asked about Miss Gu these days, and they hardly had any interaction, even when they bumped into each other for some work. They thought the Lord had let go of Miss Gu and treated her as his normal subordinate. However, when she had gone missing, the Lord looked for her crazily as though he had lost his souls. For 3 days, the Lord had not eaten or taken a sip of water. He never stopped looking at her. However, no one knew where Gu Shijio had gone. They had looked everywhere but still could not find her. Di Fui entered the star-gazing observatory room. He was looking at the blinking stars up above the sky. He was completely focused on a new king star, and his facial expression changed. The bright new star suddenly dimmed. It looked to be tangled with the red devil star, and both were about to fall. She really wanted to find Mo Zhao. He had no idea what strategy she has used, but it appears as though she has chosen to die with Mo Zhao. Gu Shijio, don't do something silly, please. Gu Shijio, your life is way more important than his. Please, don't give up. Di Fui took a leap and rushed towards a certain direction. This time, both of the stars had shown their exact location. Hopefully he could make it in time and nothing would have happened to her. Chapter 1699. Nothing serious could happen to her, right? Gu Shijio was the new lord of this world. How could she fall? Shijio, wait for me. Little Shijio, you're obsessed with me, huh? Did you fall for me? Otherwise, why would you follow me all the way here? There was a frozen sea at the most northern region in the continent, and there was also an ice land on that frozen sea. There was an abandoned land deep inside the ice land that was occupied by certain ferocious beasts, which were similar to penguins and polar bears. The snowflakes were as big as a straw mat, and the entire land was covered by ice mountains and glaciers. The place looked like the most rural area at the North Pole with a vile environment and bad weather. It was not a good place for spiritual growth because the area lacked spiritual energy. Thus, no one would come here even if they had all the time in the world. Yet strangely, inside a bottomless ice gap on the ice land, a magnetic and flirtatious voice was heard. "Emo Zhao, I really have an obsession. I'm obsessed with you because I want to kill you." An icy voice could be heard in response. "Sigh, it's really sad." The man sighed. He then added 2 sentences from a poem. I gave my sincere heart to a beautiful lady. However, the beautiful lady did not appreciate it. There was an ice cave at the bottom of the ice, and our river flowed within it. Countless icicles filled the stream of water. It shone in blue, and the chill could freeze someone to death. Gu Shijio was standing on an icicle, while Emo Zhao stood on another icicle opposite her. Emo Zhao looked passionate as he glimpsed at Gu Shijio with his narrowed eyes, but his gaze looked depressed after he read the 2 sentences. It was as though he really got hurt in a relationship. Gu Shijio slightly pursed her lips. Apparently, she did not buy his passion. In fact, Emo Zhao was not supposed to know the poem. However, he had worked with Long Fan before, and Long Fan was a typical boastful man who showed off his talents by reading some poems in front of Mo Zhao. And Mo Zhao sighed and added, "Honestly, I'm really curious how you found me. Did you follow me all the way? I was sure to clear off any traces of me, and even Di Fui would not be able to find me. So how did you manage to find me?" Mo Zhao took the opportunity to escape using the ground drilling technique after he destroyed his underground palace. He had gotten hold of the 2 items he wanted, which was the mermaid's tears and the fresh blood from the blue fox. He would completely recover once he ate those 2 things and converted its energy. He would only need 3 days and nights of practice and meditation. This was why Mo Zhao decided to run away instead of battle them head-on. He wanted to speed up his recovery progress first. He did not expect that regardless of where he escaped to, Gu Shijio would find him. In the beginning, he did think of catching Gu Shijio before running away. However, Gu Shijio was very smart and tricky. She immediately disappeared with her teleportation technique every time he saw her, and she would then disturb him again with a sneak attack once he began to meditate. That drove him nuts. Mo Zhao was helpless. He tried many different ways to escape, but Gu Shijio always found him. Throughout the process of escaping and chasing one another, both of them accidentally ran into this abandoned ice land and coincidentally bumped into each other at the bottom of an ice cap. Gu Shijio decided to give her all to kill him. She would not give up until he dies. However, since Mo Zhao had swallowed the blood of a blue fox more than 3 days ago, the blood would lose its effect since he did not manage to meditate. Mo Zhao was extremely frustrated. Thus, he was no longer happy even when he saw Gu Shijio. Instead, he felt extremely annoyed and intended to kill her. Chapter 1700 Mo Zhao was also very familiar with astrology, even though his knowledge was not as broad as Di Fui's. He knew the old king star would fall soon, and that a new king star would be born within this period. However, if the omen could kill the new king star before it matures, then the star of the omen would replace the new king star and become the new lord of the world. Of course, the people would need to worship the devil by then, and the structure of the continent would be changed entirely. He had this intention a long time ago. Hence, he was waiting for the new king star to look for him because the new king star would be weak and easy to be killed at an earlier stage. And Mo Zhao always kept an eye on the stars. However, the old king star always looked bright, and it did not seem to be falling anytime soon. Therefore, he thought the new king star would not be born that soon, at least not within the upcoming 60 years. Thus, he kept a very low profile and got himself hidden to avoid the Lord's suspicion. Unfortunately, when he realized that the new king star had already been born, it was already very bright and strong. Apparently, the old king star had done something to manipulate its growth. That was the reason it was very dim among the other stars before it reached its maturity. Hence, Mo Zhao missed the opportunity. Although Mo Zhao noticed the new king star in the sky, he could not identify who it belonged to. He could not even tell the exact location of the new king star. Hence, he had no way to kill his opponent and gain control of the continent. Initially, he planned to find him or her after he completely recovered. However, he was surprised to see the ray of 7 colored lights when Gu Shijio attacked him. That was the light specially emitted by the king star of the world. She was a new king star which he could not find. He honestly felt that God must be joking with him because the only woman he loved was the new king star he always wanted to kill. He was trying to figure out what he would do while he kept running away from her. He initially thought that he should marry the new king star and then destroy all her kung fu. He wanted her to be his empress, to watch him conquer the world and celebrate his glory. However, he seemed to have given up on this idea now. He could always find a better woman in the future. However, there was only one world. Hence, he could only sacrifice her for his hegemony. At most, he would keep her souls and engrave his seal of the devil on her souls. In this case, she could never be a deity even if she resurrects in the future. As he narrowed his eyes, his fingers slowly clenched in his sleeves while he was staring at her. In fact, he was really curious about Gu Zijia's tracking ability. How could it be so amazing? Gu Shijio was staring back at him. She knew he had the intention to kill her. Instead of being fearful, she smiled. It was finally time for their final battle. She too had been waiting for this moment. Gu Shijio was in a good mood. Thus, she did not mind answering Emo Zhao. Actually, I've suspected you way too long ago. So, I've done something to your body. Unless you're willing to abandon your body, you should just stop running away because it'll find you no matter where you go. Emo Zhao was speechless. He sighed before answering. I personally think I've hidden myself very well. Even Di Fui couldn't find me. How did you suspect me so early? He was always good at acting and had completely possessed Rong Jiaoyuo's body. He ate Rong Jiaoyuo's souls, and now he owned all of his memories. Chapter 1701, since he had successfully taken over Rong Jiaoyuo's identity, how did Gu Shijio unravel his secret? Gu Shijio pinched her now pale red lips and answered calmly, Rong Jiaoyuo was once my friend. Gu Shijio knew her friends well enough, and that included Rong Jiaoyuo. One's temperament might differ due to the change in his or her social status. One's personality, however, would not change to an undistinguishable extent. Although he always put on his grim expression, Rong Jiaoyuo was naturally a little shy and introverted. For the past few months, Rong Jiaoyuo behaved somewhat similarly, with a lack of amiability, but Gu Shijio could still notice his mild sense of evilness through his eyes. That was when she started to suspect his true identity. Before this, she even tried to perform several tests on him secretly, but the results remained normal, which led her to assume that she overthought the whole situation. However, for the sake of his safety, she would perform some spells on Rong Jiaoyuo every time she visited the palace to expiate the sins of the sorrowful souls. Rong Jiaoyuo was the kind of person with the ability to bring troubles to himself. With or without his attachment with Mo Zhao, she would still look after him in secret. Even though he was still Rong Jiaoyuo, it would be best for her to know where to find him if one day he was unfortunately kidnapped by Mo Zhao. Mo Zhao was a smart man. He understood the underlying meaning of Gu Zijia's answer. Shijio, you are so kind to Rong Jiaoyuo. I was once your friend, too, but why didn't you look after me like you did to him? He sighed. Gu Shijio responded with a smirk. I once treated you as a friend, but that was all in the past. Ever since he became Mo Zhao, he had been doing so many evil deeds that went against all moral codes and humanity. How could she treat him as a friend like before? Mo Zhao looked down and heaved a long sigh. However, you are still a friend to me. Think about it. Ever since we met, I have been treating you well and have never done anything to harm you. When you were in trouble, I was the one who helped you. I would not do anything to harm any of your friends, otherwise Little Fox would be long dead. Shijio, you have to face your conscience. I have always been so kind to you, but you never gave me any chances. You destroyed several underground palaces of mine and injured me so severely for many times. Right now, you're even trying to exterminate me. Think about it with your conscience. Is this right? Do I deserve this? He had a gift of rare eloquence. His voice was gentle yet attractive, like a warm stream that flowed smoothly into Gu Zijia's heart. While he talked, he focused his eyes so intensely with profound affection. He tried to make her fall for him. His eyes shone brightly, like a gleam of warm moonlight shrouding the land. Gu Shijio remained silent and stared at him blankly without any expression. Mo Zhao tried harder. He took another step closer to her and asked, "Shijio, will you let me go?" Gu Shijio pursed her lips in return. "What about the real Rong Jiao? Where is he?" Mo Zhao sighed. "Am I not Rong Jiao? You are not. You are Rong Che. The eighth prince, Rong Jiao, treated you so well back in the day. How could you do something so evil to him?" "Shijio, he was nice to me, so I refused to lay my murderous hand on him. Didn't you know? He used to feel a strong sense of inferiority in front of you for always putting you in trouble. He wanted to become stronger so he could finally fight alongside you. He wanted to be the man who could protect you, but his talent was nothing remarkable. He could never make it past level 9 with his own capability, nor could he become stronger than you. He was very sad and disappointed." Mo Zhao explained softly. "So you took the opportunity to lure him into your vicious plan and made him agree to the blood agreement? For you to own his body?" Mo Zhao laughed. "You cannot say that I lured him. He agreed willingly. I promised to keep his conscience." Chapter 1702. Rong Jiao has been very nice to me. I will certainly not harm him. As you can see right now, we have come together as one. Mo Zhao continued. "I believe it is not his conscience that you kept, but his memory. Did you engulf his souls as a whole?" Gu Shijio continued. Mo Zhao rubbed his nose before answering. "It is not nice for you to say that I swallowed his souls. I prefer to call it a union of our souls." Gu Shijio could not suppress the sadness in her eyes. She could almost understand why Mo Zhao chose to attach his soul to Rong Jiao's body. When Mo Zhao was still Rong Che, both of them had spent many years together, enough for Mo Zhao to understand Rong Jiao, which made it easier for him to manipulate his flaws. Moreover, Rong Che and Rong Jiao were brothers who shared the same bloodline. Mo Zhao had been using Rong Chi's body long enough to adapt to the Rong bloodline. Therefore, Rong Jiao was a good choice that would make the reattachment easier for him. Rong Jiao was, after all, an ordinary man in his 20s, so he was not a well-matched adversary for Mo Zhao, who had been cultivating his vital energy for thousands of years. Once Mo Zhao took over the body, Rong Jiao's soul would not be spared. It seemed like Rong Jiao would never come back again. He had truly become Mo Zhao. Hence, Gu Shijio was devastated by the realization. Rong Jiao had always been very kind to her. Without Mo Zhao, Rong Jiao could be an excellent ruler of the Facian Kingdom with a good name for posterity. Unfortunately, his encounter with Mo Zhao made it all impossible. Mo Zhao had been controlling him for all his life. Before, Gu Shijio was still unable to overcome certain misgivings, but she changed her mind. There would be no scruple for her anymore. She looked at Mo Zhao fixedly. "There is one more thing that I do not understand." "Say it." "You know I do not have the heart to reject you. In the secret blood palace. What did you mean when you said you did not expect it to be me?" Gu Shijio knew that there would be some underlying meaning in his words. Mo Zhao returned her question with a smile. "Shijio, can you read the star chart?" Gu Shijio was perplexed, as she did not understand what it had to do with the star chart. A flashback suddenly occurred to her. She remembered Di Fui once showed her the astrological chart, which among many stars, she found the biggest star that represented Di Fui, but failed to find the star for her own. Di Fui did not point out to her either. She thought that she must be too insignificant to be on the chart, so she did not question any further. Mo Zhao's sudden question made her rethink the entire situation. Did Mo Zhao recognize her star from the star chart? She wondered if she had already acquired a position among the stars with her present capability, but she had no idea which one. The real star chart could only be revealed at certain locations. The ordinary night sky left no trace of each star's position. She answered with another question instead. What difference would it make if I can or cannot read it? Mo Zhao kept his eyes on her smilingly. He tried to find some clues from her expression. Although she managed to skip the question, he was sure to assume that she was still unaware of her true identity from the way she responded. It will be fun for Mo Zhao. Under normal circumstances, the old King Star would protect the new King Star as part of his or her obligation. He would keep the heir safe when necessary and teach the new King Star the ability to guard the world by continuing the work of the predecessor. The old King Star should never watch over the new King Star so extensively to the point of going against God's will. However, he could tell that the old King Star had done a lot for her from the star chart. The level of commitment had gone way beyond the relationship between a predecessor and an heir. Chapter 1703. 1703, logically speaking, the old King Star should have passed the stargazing ability to the new King Star. However, she appeared to know nothing about it. It seemed that the former King Star did not wish for the incoming King Star to find out the truth about their change of power. He genuinely cared for her, which was something very unusual. There was only one possibility. The old and new King Stars must be lovers, who swore to love as long as they both should live. The old King Star must be trying to avoid breaking her heart by not telling her the truth of his doom. The old King Star would use any reasons, even with his betrayal, to cause them to split before his final days. He would break her heart entirely, so she was no longer concerned about his existence. He would then hide from the world. It was normal for him to disappear for a few years, even for a few decades. If everything had been properly arranged, the new King Star would never find out the truth about the death of the old King Star. His follower would take his form and make an occasional appearance once every few years, so the world would still think that he was still alive. After the heartbreak, the new King Star would never ask anything about the old King Star ever again. She would never find out about his death. Mo Zhao thought to himself. The only one that was entangled with Gu Shijio was Di Fui. It was normal for Di Fui to look after Gu Shijio, but not the Lord, unless the Lord was indeed Di Fui. Di Fui could be the embodiment of the Lord. Mo Zhao was delighted at this sudden realization. He had heard about the breakup between Gu Shijio and Di Fui. Before this, he did not quite understand why their relationship would end up in ruins, given that both of them were so madly in love, so much so that they would die for one another. He finally understood it all. That was how it was. Di Fui must have been scheming his plan for quite a while. He turned to look at Gu Shijio with an intense gaze and questioned her. Di Fui is the Lord, right? Gu Shijio was utterly surprised, but she gave nothing away on her face. What nonsense are you talking about? She did not know how he came up with the assumption. Mo Zhao looked away and smiled scornfully. He did not intend to answer Gu Zijia's confusion. If I knew better that they were the same man, I should have tortured him to death while he was still in my underground palace. It was a great remorse. Mo Zhao repented of his lost opportunity so immensely. He did not realize that the Lord was once in his hand, but he let him escape so easily. Mo Zhao gave Gu Shijio a look so full of pity. He wondered how she would react when she found out about the truth. Would she be mentally devastated? He decided to wait until Di Fui's death before uncovering the painful truth. Her expressions would be fascinating. Di Fui's painstaking effort would be all wasted away. He would take it as a revenge for all the suppression that he had to suffer for so many years. The idea sounded very interesting. Mo Zhao's mind started to be bombarded with many more crazy ideas. He no longer wanted to murder Gu Shijio, at least for now. He would wait until the day she found out about the truth. The urge to kill Gu Shijio started to fade. He should take it easy and wait for the death of the old King Star before he started to take any action. As long as Lan Weihu was still alive, he could still extract the blood from her heart. Also, he still had some mermaid tears left. For the past few days, he had to bustle in and out all because of Gu Shijio. She was very excellent in causing him all sorts of disturbances. All he needed was a quiet place to practice his kung fu and cultivate his vital energy, so he had to keep running away from her. Chapter 1704. 1704. Mo Zhao had come round to this idea now, so there was no need for him to rush into his practice. He had taken over Rong Jiaoyuo's body. All that was left was for him to recover fully. Furthermore, Gu Shijiu was no match to him if he wanted to hurt her right now. It would take him half a day to defeat her. He would then wait for the death of Di Fui before taking any actions. While he was still chatting with Gu Shijiu, he would walk around between the cracks of the ice. His steps appeared to be random, but he was trying to set up a strategy to seal the place so that there was no place she could run. Gu Shijiu watched cautiously as he continued to walk around. He trod the area from end to end, so she followed his steps. She was a little frustrated. From time to time, she would give the icicles on the banks a kick. Although the ice towers were unusually strong, Gu Zijia's strength was enough to kick them off their ground. Some of them were cheekily aimed at Mo Zhao. Certainly, Mo Zhao would not allow himself to be hit by these ice towers. He would either flip the ice away with his sleeve or swiftly avoid them. He remained untouched. Gu Shijiu could tell that there was an underlying meaning in Mo Zhao's words, but she could not figure out the hidden message. She no longer wanted to make any assumptions. Making any assumptions was exhausting, and Gu Shijiu was too tired to think about it at the moment. She only had one goal, which was to kill Mo Zhao. She needed revenge on behalf of Little Fox, Rong Jiaoluo, the innocent people he had hurt, and also herself. She had to destroy the scourge of mass destruction. She was not afraid to die in a fight with him. She was also devising a strategy which would cause both of them to be either severely injured or dead. They continued to talk, but Mo Zhao was a very careful person. He did not let any of his thoughts slip out of his mouth. Gu Shijiu only responded faintly, so he would not find out anything from her words. She was an expert in array formation, so she could see that Mo Zhao was secretly planning his strategy. He must be desperate to catch her or even kill her. She smirked, for it was still uncertain who would be dead at the end. She knew that her kung fu was no match to Mo Zhao's, but she had her ways. She learned a strategy from an exorcist that she met in her previous life. It was a plan that could be the ultimate kill. However, the plan must come with a great price. Unless it were really necessary, no one would execute the plan. Now was the time. It was finally time for her to carry out the strategy. Although Mo Zhao was also an expert in array formation, his knowledge in that particular strategy was not as good as hers. He took a stroll at the banks for nearly half an hour. Finally, he came to a stop and looked at Gu Shijiu fixedly, who was still standing opposite him. Gu Shijiu raised her head, and their eyes met. Mo Zhao gave her a gentle smile, but it somehow looked devilish. Shijiu, I see that you like to follow my footsteps. Stop running away, will you? Gu Shijiu frowned, but remained silent. Mo Zhao took a swift leap and landed next to her. He had already secured a wizardry barrier in all the ice cracks. Hence, her teleportation technique within the barrier would not work. She could no longer escape. The placement of the wizardry barrier was very physically draining, especially to Mo Zhao's spiritual power. With the execution of the plan, he would need at least half a month of recovery to begin his practice again. He was resigned to the fact that he would stop his practice for a little while. Otherwise, he would not perform the wizardry barrier at this critical point. He was very determined to get Gu Shijiu this time. Certainly, he had never paid any attention to her kung fu capability. He was aware that her kung fu was good, but nothing compared to his standard. If they had to fight, she would not be able to resist more than 70 to 80 of his martial styles. Gu Shijiu smiled charmingly. You better not run away this time. Whoever runs is a coward. Let's put an end to this. Chapter 1705. 1705. Mo Zhao did not expect Gu Shijiu to be so direct toward him. Soon he laughed. All right, whoever runs is a coward. Shijiu, I will make sure you know my strength. He had decided to take her down forcibly this time by making her his woman. If he could never get her heart, he could at least have her body. He wanted to see her suffer in tears. He would rather have her destroyed if he could not have her. He opened up his palm to summon his weapon. A blood-red sword formed immediately in his hand. The edge of his sword was flaming, but its effect was cold. Immediately after its emergence, there came a loud, wailing scream from its ferocious, evil spirits. The glacier, which had been actively streaming for tens of thousands of years, froze immediately when the sword appeared. The coldness was unbearable, as though piercing through Gu Zijia's skin. Gu Shijio flipped the corner of her sleeves and summoned a flexible rope in her hand. It was a rope of seven-colored gleam and was as soft and nimble as a whip. Her hand gestured a little, and the flexible weapon straightened up instantly. The body of the rope was shimmering with many colors. It was quite majestic. She used to have an arsenal of great weapons from Di Fui. However, since she broke up with Di Fui, she sent all the things back to him. She even stopped using all the kung fu techniques that he taught her. She used the power of her soul to create a flexible rope. It immediately surrounded the entire chilly environment with a warm halo. Under the influence of the seven-colored flexible rope, beautiful glowing rays started to shine in all directions on the ice, forming a bright and dazzling view. Mo Zhao looked at the presentation of her flexible rope and was perplexed. He did not expect Gu Shijio to use this as her weapon. As far as he was concerned, she was better with swords. Your weapon is quite fancy. Did Di Fui give it to you? Gu Shijio responded scornfully. It looks fancy, but is lethal enough to kill you. With a stretch, the flexible rope extended towards Mo Zhao. Mo Zhao laughed out loud despite the impending danger. All right, I would like to see how this soft weapon is going to kill me. The sword used by Mo Zhao was an excellent weapon from ancient evil times. There was nothing that it could not cut through. It could effortlessly destroy a sword that was made of diamond and shatter it into pieces. More importantly, many sorrowful evil spirits had been confined by the power of the sword. In every movement of the sword, the evil spirits further enhanced the strength of the sword, making it powerful enough to kill both gods and celestial beings. He had been keeping the sword for his battle against the Lord. Now he had to use it against Gu Shijio instead. If the sword hit Gu Shijio, she would be immediately frozen into an ice cube, and Mo Zhao could finally do anything to her as he pleased. The tip of the sword and the rope met in a clash, and Mo Zhao was very hopeful that the power of his evil spirits could affect Gu Zijia's body through the flexible rope, thus freezing every inch of her limbs. To his surprise, the flexible rope shone out a gleam of powerful seven-colored rays that immediately purified the grievance of the bloody red evil spirits. He was utterly surprised and withdrew his sword. A few sorrowful souls had just been expiated from their grief through the gleam of the seven-colored ray. You? He looked at her with an utter surprise. What kind of kung fu is that? He had never seen anything like it. The one that can kill you. Gu Zijia's flexible rope turned into a colorful mirage and launched another attack towards Mo Zhao. The seven-colored mirage shone forth with all its strength. There were many patterns emerging on the surface of the rope, as though countless of petals falling from the sky. Wherever the petals landed, it was as though spring had arrived. Warm breezes of spring air swept across the frozen glacier, thus making the stream lively again. Mo Zhao shook his head in disbelief. The kung fu that Gu Shijio was performing was very strange, unlike anything that he had ever seen. Moreover, the strength of the kung fu was powerful, comparable to the power of the Lord himself. Chapter 1706. 1706 Mo Zhao thought about it and was confused. Gu Zijia's spiritual power was not high enough to perform something so powerful. How did she do it? He tried to avoid the strikes on the side of the riverbank while trying to solve his confusion. However, his confusion would remain unanswered, as Gu Shijio would never explain it to him. Gu Shijio pressed him with every step that she took. Her odd moves emerged in an endless flow, making it harder for Mo Zhao to avoid. He never thought that the fight would require his full strength, but after a few encounters with Gu Shijio, he finally understood that he needed to put in all his efforts to win the fight. Otherwise, he would be injured by her. His power began to sink in. Finally, he was able to utilize all of his strength. His moves were getting more merciless and tricky. The fight by the riverbank became increasingly vigorous. An hour passed, then another hour passed. The glacier was melted and frozen again multiple times over the fight. Also, the ice towers at the riverbank were greatly affected by their battle and shattered into powder. The surrounding ice walls started to crumble, causing snow slides from the tip of the iceberg. Slowly but surely, the appearance of the area had been completely altered. It looked like a battlefield now. Although the appearance changed, their wizardry barriers remained unaffected. Gu Shijio could not use her teleportation technique, and Imo Zhao could not run away from her. He wanted to escape. He knew that this was too risky a fight for him at this stage. Gu Zijia's body was surrounded by a faint glow throughout the battle. When his sword touched the halo, it only managed to bruise her, causing her to spit out a little blood. No vitals were harmed, so she could still fight. Whenever she had the opportunity to injure him, she could not care less about his sword that was aiming at her chest or her head. She whipped the flexible rope unsparingly, showing him no sense of mercy at all by giving him more and more injuries. Imo Zhao would not mind physical injuries. However, there seemed to be some incarnations on his wounds as well that could purify the devilish influence from his body. The pain seemed to pierce into his bones, and it felt 10 times more painful than a normal injury. Apparently, she was ready to die in the battle with him, but Imo Zhao was not. He tried to escape from the battle a number of times, but was halted by a barrier set up by Gu Shijio. He finally knew that Gu Shijio had also set up a wizardry barrier to prevent him from running away. Toward the end of the fight, he could no longer hold back his frustration. "Gu Shijio, what kind of spell have you performed here?" he asked loudly. Gu Shijio was injured as well. There was some blood at the corner of her mouth. With a smirk, she threw him an icy glance. "The spell that can prevent you from escaping. Imo Zhao, you will never make it out unless you kill me." Imo Zhao did not know what to say. He had tried several ways to escape, but all failed. There was a fierce and brutal look in his eyes. "All right then, I will be sure to kill you." He put his escape plan aside and launched a series of savagely violent attacks at Gu Shijio. He assumed that Gu Shijio must have taken some pills that allowed her spiritual power to advance greatly. However, the effect of the pills would not last long, just like the power of demon disintegration dharma. Although one's kung fu could be greatly increased by a few folds, the effects would not last longer than 2 hours. When the time came, he would slowly torture her. Surprisingly, none of them backed out in exhaustion even after 2 hours of intense battle. On the contrary to his expectation, the strength of her 7-colored ray grew even more vibrant. Chapter 1707. 1707 The dazzling battlefield marveled Imo Zhao. There were many injuries all over his body, and the power of the sorrowful souls became gradually weaker under the radiance of the 7-colored rays. He would most probably lose his life. Before, he was a little perplexed that Gu Shijio chose to fight him alone rather than having her friends to help. Now he finally understood. The kung fu that Gu Shijio used was very lethal. She was confident that she could win this fight. It was not easy for Imo Zhao to be reincarnated, so he certainly did not want to end his life here. He wanted to uncover some parts of the truth to distract her, but Gu Zijia's strategy became more and more brutal. Her strikes grew more frequent, leaving him no chance to say anything. There was no room for distraction. If he insisted on talking, his body would be split in half under her majestic rope, and he would never be able to put the pieces of his body back again. All of their attention was completely focused on the battle of life and death before them. None of them heard any sound from the outside of the wizardry barrier. There seemed to be a man shouting out loud from outside the barrier. For the first time ever, Difui felt as though he was going crazy. On his way, waves of anxiety hit him continuously. He tried to increase his speed, but it was still too slow for him. The place was too far away. Difui did not expect them to end up in a place so far away. Both of them had only gone missing for 3 days, and yet they managed to end up where the glacier was tens of thousands of miles away. Gu's Zygius body was prone to coldness, so that the place would be a significant disadvantage to her. Also, she was indeed not a match to Mo Zhao. Even with all his strength, Di Fui needed at least 3 hours to get to where she was. 3 hours were more than enough for any misfortunes to happen. He was too anxious to care about the obstacles along his journey and crashed into a few trees. He had even tried to contact her by using the Jade tablet while he was on his way, but received no answer. She seemed to have made up her mind to fight Mo Zhao until the very end. She did not even call for help. Was Gu Shijio trying to kill herself? Gu Shijio, please do not do anything stupid. Even with all your spiritual power, you are still incomparable to Mo Zhao. You are only throwing away your own life. He finally made it to the deserted land of ice and found the place where the star chart had been showing him. From a distance, he could see the radiance of 7 colored rays bursting out in the air. There was also a mix of some red and multicolored light, battling against one another. Loud strikes could be heard in the distance, followed by the eye-catching gleams. The explosive sound was enough to shake the grounds. Many layers of ice were starting to break apart. The icebergs were crumbling, one by one. Fortunately, there was no one around to witness the fight. If the same battle happened in a populated area, the entire town would be destroyed by now. When Di Fui finally saw the gleaming 7-colored ray, his face turned pale. He knew how well Gu Zijia's kung fu was, so the 7-colored ray came as no surprise. However, it was the intensity that astonished him the most, as it should not be so bright and colorful. Unless her power had been significantly advanced, it was impossible for her to get the result. No power could be instantly increased to such a great extent in such a short time. Chapter 1708. 1708, there was a chance that Gu Shijio was using some forbidden magic, like the Demon Disintegration Dharma. The Demon Disintegration Dharma could indeed achieve the same result, but the use of this power came with a high price to pay. After performing the spell, some would lose most of their spiritual power and become disabled. In the worst-case scenario, he or she would die right away. Di Fui had to stop her. There were ways to stop her from performing the Demon Disintegration Dharma. From the looks of her 7-colored ray, her life seemed to be coming to an end. He had to stop her as soon as possible. He lunged forward abruptly, only to be bounced back by an invisible barrier. It must be a wizardry barrier. Di Fui was very skilled in breaking wizardry barriers. He was impatient of all this waiting, so he started to break in without recognizing the nature of the wizardry barrier. He chose to use the strongest way to make sure the barrier could be broken at his first attempt. A flash of white rays emerged as he proceeded to smash the barrier. The method was the most useful way that could be used to break through all kinds of barriers, like a multi-purpose tool or master key. To his surprise, he only managed to tremble the barrier very lightly. It did not seem to break apart at all. He took a look at Gu Shijio, who was now fighting violently within the barrier. All of a sudden, her body started to shake, as though she had just taken a great punch. Soon, she spat out a mouthful of blood. Mo Zhao seized the opportunity to attack her head-on, but she managed to turn around and avoid it. The wizardry barrier that Gu Shijio made was rather strong. Looking in from the outside of the barrier, Di Fui could only witness the rapid battle by recognizing the vibrant flashes and shadows of swords. He could not see their faces, as they were standing too far away from the barrier. However, he could see that she spat out a mouthful of blood. He was immediately stunned and started to study the wizardry barrier. He touched the surface lightly with the tip of his fingers. There was a warm, familiar sense. Without a doubt, the barrier was set up by Gu Shijio. However, the type of barrier that she used was nothing he had seen or heard about. The anima of the wizardry barrier was very intense, sending forth a delicate sense of her soul, as though the barrier was supported solely by the power of her soul. His facial expression changed abruptly. If the barrier was supported by the power of her soul, breaking the barrier was the same as launching an attack against her. Setting up a wizardry barrier by channeling one's soul was a very risky move. Anyone who wished to break the barrier would have to attack the soul from the one who set it up. If the barrier were placed at a location full of practitioners, it would be suicidal. When did she learn how to set up a wizardry barrier? By channeling the power of her soul. He had never taught her so. There were only two possible ways to break the barrier. Either the creator willingly disarms it, or the creator dies. Fui's hands started to tremble. He tried to perform the ground drilling technique, but it was impossible for him to penetrate through. Apparently, she sealed off the barrier from every possible corner. No one could ever make it through. Shijio, open up the barrier. Let me in. He screamed out loud. His spiritual power allowed him to exert a great force for his voice to penetrate through the barrier. Regardless of the distance, be it a few miles or a few hundred miles, he was sure that his message would be conveyed. His voice reverberated from the heights of the land, like echoes in an empty valley. However, the two people in the wizardry barrier did not seem to notice him at all. He refused to give up and tried a few times more. He even used all sorts of abilities that he knew, but could not get her attention. The fight went on vigorously. Was the wizardry barrier soundproof? He could hear the sound of their battle. Was it only soundproof from the outside? Or was she trying to avoid distractions? Fui used to be able to stay calm and confident, no matter how serious the issue at hand was. But for the first time, he started to tremble helplessly as his anxiety took over his mind. Chapter 1709. 1709, it was a mess in the wizardry barrier. Fui tried to use a few milder methods to break the barrier, but they were useless. Instead, Gu Shijio was hurt even more with his every attempt. It was so dangerous inside that she almost lost her arm under Mo Zhao's violent attacks. Blood started to flow from her wound, staining her entire left arm in red. Fui dared not make another move. He could no longer calm himself down. Driven by anxiety, his limbs went cold. It was the first time for him to know how fear felt like. His emotions were whirling in a chaotic jumble. He had lost his usual sense of thought. After contemplating for a while, he immediately contacted Long Sai. Although he had suspended Long Sai's status as a Heaven's Gift disciple, he did not confiscate his jade tablet. He hoped that Long Sai still kept it close to him. Luckily, Long Sai did not lose the jade tablet. He picked up the call immediately. Celestial Masters, have you found Shijio? Fui was not in the mood for some unnecessary small talk. Has she learned any unusual spell before? It is a spell that can channel the power of her soul to set up a wizardry barrier. He quickly briefed Long Sai about the characteristics of the barrier, hoping that Long Sai would have a clue. Long Sai's tone changed immediately. Where is she? Is she going after Mo Zhao? Is she risking her life to fight against him? Fui did not conceal any information from him. He answered with the exact location and their current situation before he continued. Do you know about the wizardry barrier? How do I break it? Long Sai's voice ripped through the air. Fui, you are driving her to her death. She is ready to die with Mo Zhao in the fight. Fui took a deep breath. I'm finding ways to save her. Tell me the way, so I can break through the barrier and get her out from danger. She is still alive right now. Long Sai answered in disbelief. Save her? I am afraid that there is no other way. The barrier was made from the soul-condemning spell. It will not be deactivated unless the creator is dead. What? What do you mean? Fui's voice started to tremble. There was no way he could tell if Long Sai was crying or laughing. She learned it from a great exorcist back in the modern days. The exorcist was a descendant of the Nuwa Empress. Her skill in exorcism was beyond compare. Shijio stayed with her for some time to learn her kung fu, including the Holy Spirit wizardry barrier and the soul-condemning spell. The two spells complement one another in a sequence. Once it is activated, it will immediately advance the creator's power by 5 folds, but can only be deactivated when one of them, the creator or the opponent, dies. No outsider can play a part in the battle. Please do not attempt to break into the barrier that she made. It would be the equivalent of attacking her. You will kill her, just like what Mo Zhao wishes. Fui's body froze. He could not get himself together. His ears started to buzz. He stared blankly at Gu Shijio, who was currently fluttering in the air and fighting vigorously. He believed that she was aware of his presence. She was the one who made the wizardry barrier. How could she not notice it when someone attacked it? She could not care less. She did not even bother to turn her eyes to check it out. She seemed to be very determined to die. Had she lost all hope to live? She seemed to have let the past go. The way she looked at him was as though he was a stranger. She accepted him as a normal friend and even accomplished some tasks together just before this battle. He thought that she had already recovered from the past and started to become stronger on her own. He finally realized that she had only been acting. All she wanted was to kill herself. Longsai lost all hope too. Di Fui, she loves you so much that she is willing to do anything for you. Chapter 1710. 1710. Gu Shijio always lacked love because she was born an orphan. Hence, she didn't trust anyone and always protected herself. She didn't want me hurt, but she opened up to you. I've talked to her before she achieved a level 9 spiritual power. She told me she wants to work harder on her practice because she wanted to be with you forever, as she didn't want you to be alone. When you came out of the Forbidden Land together, she came to visit me and couldn't stop talking about you. She was thrilled that time because she finally achieved a level 10 spiritual power and was able to fight side by side with you. She said she wanted to share your burden. At that time, she was living in heaven and never stopped dreaming about both of your future. Do you know why I was willing to give up? It's because of this. I knew she had completely fallen for you, and she could never see anyone else anymore. Even if you die, she will follow you without turning back. Di Fui clenched the jade tablet tightly as he listened to Long sigh. Di Fui, she loved you so much. How could you be so cruel to her? You sent her up to the sky and then kicked her down to hell. Do you know how she lived these days? Do you know she hides everything in her heart and couldn't sleep every night? You've ruined all her confidence. Although she didn't tell me what exactly happened between the two of you, she had mentioned a little about it when she was still unconscious while swapping her body. She felt she was just a joke to you because she was a clone in her previous life and this life, and now even the soul was not hers. She was exhausted from living. Perhaps she shouldn't have come to this world. She knew you didn't want her anymore, but she still could not let you go. She was very sad. She didn't want to be a substitute. She said you wanted her to die because your beloved could not live if she doesn't die. Long Sai's words were like thousands of blades stabbing Di Fui's heart simultaneously. His face gradually turned pale. His body was trembling as his hand were placed on top of the barrier. He felt numb and weak to the extent that he almost fell to the ground. He looked at Gu Shijio, who was inside the wizardry barrier, and he realized her responses began to slow down. She has almost used up all of her power and energy. Mo Zhao was not in good condition either. However, he could continue to fight. It seemed inevitable that Gu Shijio would die in Mo Zhao's hands. While Mo Zhao hated her to his blood and bones now, he would not only kill Gu Zijia's body once he wins the battle, but also destroy her souls. By that time, that would be the end of Gu Zijia's life. Di Fui planned everything for her all these years. He has made so many sacrifices for her. He definitely would not accept such a result. A 7-colored light slowly formed in Di Fui's palms. He knew a divine power which could break the wizardry barrier. There was no wizardry barrier that it could not break because the destructive power was extremely strong. However, it would consume a lot of his power and energy. Hence, it has never used it before. Di Fui could not be bothered anymore. Perhaps her life would be at risk when he broke her wizardry barrier, but he could safeguard her souls. He had a solution to resurrect her as long as her souls were complete. When Di Fui about to launch his power, he suddenly heard Mo Zhao laughed out loud in the wizardry barrier. Gu Shijio, you've lost. You. Before he managed to finish his arrogant speech, he suddenly paused as he felt as though a sword sliced him. Di Fui immediately lifted his head, and he saw a scene which was horrible enough to make his souls scatter. The sword in Mo Zhao's hand poked into Gu Zijia's chest, and penetrated through her back. At the same time, the rope in Gu Zijia's hand had gone into Mo Zhao's mouth and penetrated his head. A seven-colored light was shining all over the place as it engulfed Mo Zhao's body with a strong, purifying energy. Chapter 1711. 1711 Gu Shijiu said with an icy tone as she gasped, "You're the loser." Mo Zhao's eyeballs were moving uncontrollably as he glared at Gu Shijiu angrily. He seemed to want to say something, but all that she could hear was a strange sound in his throat. He did not manage to say anything in the end. He slumped on the ground helplessly. His gaze was filled with sympathy and sadness. He was dead. The flexible rope was indeed a unique weapon, which had a powerful effect of purification. It killed Mo Zhao's physical body as well as his soul's. Gu Shijiu stumbled forward, and her body also slumped on the snow. Almost the same time, the wizardry barrier had finally cracked. Di Fui rushed in and carried her. "Shijiu, it would be fine. She would be fine. She has killed Mo Zhao, and there was only an injury on her chest. He could save her. She would be fine." His trembling fingers held on the sword which penetrated her chest. All the evil wraiths in the sword has been purified by Gu Shijiu. Di Fui used his spiritual power, and the sword immediately vanished. Since Di Fui was very knowledgeable in the field of medicine, he knew the sword did not penetrate her heart, but it did go through one of her organs. With a glance, he knew it was hazardous. He could quickly help her to reconnect all the broken vessels and make her survive. "Don't worry, it'll save you. Shijiu, it'll save you." He carried her and pressed on her chest. His voice turned hoarse, but he was still relatively firm. "Shijiu, follow my spiritual power. It'll treat you." He was glad at the moment he rushed in. That was because the two people in the wizardry barrier had finally marked the end of the battle. Mo Zhao was dead, while Gu Shijiu survived. He could not believe that she killed Mo Zhao alone with her power. Once again, she made another miracle. Nothing was more important than her survival. Thus, the very first thing Di Fui did when he came in was to treat her injury. His limbs were icy. Hence, he did not realize her body was already frozen when he first carried her. Only when he pressed on her chest and did not feel her familiar yet strong heartbeat did he realize something was wrong. Her body was very soft and cold. It was as if he was hugging a corpse. Although her wound was big, the bleeding was not that serious. How could this happen? Di Fui's fingers were shaky as he checked her breath and pulse. He almost could not sense her pulse, and she seemed to have stopped breathing. The end of her life. That was the end of her life. Gu Shijiu helplessly lied in his arms. She got slightly stiff when he hugged her as though she wanted to struggle. However, Di Fui was hugging her tightly, and she eventually gave up. However, both of her arms lied on her sides because she did not intend to return his hug. After all the hassles, she finally returned to his embrace. No one knew how much suffering she had gone through. Nobody knew how much hassle she has gone through to forget about it. Now, her heart was so painful when she returned to this embrace again. Her eyelashes trembled, and her gaze has finally stopped on his face. He was still wearing a mask with only his eyes exposed. As usual, his eyes were so charming, and she used to look at his eyes every time she lied in his embrace. Chapter 1712. 1712 Di Fui was undoubtedly a very handsome man. Gu Zijia's heart always raced every time he looked into her eyes. However, at that very moment, her heart no longer beat irregularly. Everything she saw was dark, and her vision was getting blurry. She could not see clearly, but she could feel that his eyes were now wet. Was he sad for her? Did he cry? Did he feel sympathy for her? Perhaps he did feel sad for her. However, she did not want his sympathy. What she wanted he could never give, while what he could give her now she no longer wanted. All she could hear was a buzzing and ringing sound. She could not hear anything he said. Di Fui was terrified because he realized that her vision was getting blurred and that she could not hear anything. Besides that, he could see a glow slowly spreading out from her body. That was a sign that her souls would soon disappear. His entire body was trembling because he knew he was going to lose her, and yet he had no way to change it. Shijio, Gu Shijio, please don't give up. Shijio, please stay. Listen to me. I didn't give up on you. You're always the one I loved. Shijio, listen to me. Be a good girl, okay? Listen to me. Gather your spirits with the soul condensation spell. I know you can do it. Wait until you recover. It'll slowly explain everything to you. Shijio, while he was talking, he also tried his best to transfer spiritual power into her body so that blood could circulate again in her hardened blood vessels. He also used other spells and tried his best to collect her broken souls. Suddenly, Difui had an idea and removed his mask so that she could see his lips. He knew she could read lips. Hence, she would know what he was talking about. Gu Shijio smiled with her lips curved upward, but Difui soon realized that her gaze was on his hair. Her vision was blurred, but she could recognize his white hair. She reluctantly lifted her hand from her side, and her fingertips touched his silver hair. Her lips were moving as she mumbled softly. Difui managed to hear it clearly. I don't like you with white hair. I'm sad when I saw that your hair turned white. He hugged her tightly. I'll make it black again. Shijio, we'll make the white hair black again. Could you stay, please? His voice was trembling as he tried to negotiate with her and suppress his fear. Her fingers were still rubbing his hair, but everything in front of her had turned black. She felt droplets of warm water drip on her face. However, it could never warm up her frozen skin. Difui, she said gently, are you crying for me? You should be happy after I die. I'll try my best to maintain this body. It's perfect now, don't worry. You can call that soul back after I die. However, if it returns with my memories, please remove them. I don't want to come to this world again. I don't want to be anyone's substitute. It'll give Lon Jinka back, too. She could not see or hear anything anymore, but only stared at the sky blankly. Although she had been fighting in the dark for so long, she hated it. Unfortunately, she was now helplessly engulfed by the dark. The unforeseen life has finally come to an end. Chapter 1713. 1713 Gu Shijio once tried very hard to be immortal. Unfortunately, it was all just a dream now. She chose to die with Mo Zhao, to get revenge for her friends, and to kill a devil for the world. She had certainly proved her capabilities as well. Subconsciously, she wanted to prove her abilities in front of Difui. She wanted to show him that she was not that bad compared to Lon Jinka. Why could he not try just to love her? Unfortunately, she did not bring it up even until the end, because she felt that it was not true love if she had to beg for it. Since he only loved Lon Jinka from the beginning until the end, she would return Lon Jinka to him. She would fulfill his wish and her wish as well. Difui, I wish we will never see each other again, even in our next life. But there was no next life for her anymore. She would disappear as her souls had to pay the price for forming that array. Back then, her exorcist friend just randomly mentioned about the array to her. However, she could not stop begging her friend to teach her that skill. Her friend felt helpless, and he also thought she could never use it since she didn't even have any spiritual power. Hence, he taught her all the theories and vital tricks. She only learned it out of curiosity, and she never expected that it could be used someday in the future. Perhaps it was fate. However, it was not important anymore, because everything would be gone soon along with her. Difui, I've never regretted falling in love with you. However, if I can ever choose again, I wish to have never met you. Her hands fell from his hair, and she slowly closed her eyes. A teardrop slowly rolled down from the end of her eye. Difui knelt on the ground. She could not hear any of his explanations, and none of the spells worked on her. The only thing he could do was to watch as she stopped breathing with her eyes closed. A few broken souls with 7 colored rays detached from her body and rose to the sky. Difui was very pale. He used all his power to collect the broken souls. Gu Shijio, you can't just die. This is not your end. This shouldn't be your end. You haven't listened to my explanation. You didn't know you're the only one I love. No one else. Shijio, give me a chance, please? Shijio, please, don't be so cruel. Difui could collect souls. Regardless of who was the one died in front of him, he could collect all the souls as long as he wanted, even if the souls disappeared in front of him. The only exception thus far was mermaid souls. Unfortunately, he could not collect Guzigia's broken souls too. Those 7 colored souls were untouchable. It slowly rose from his palms and influx into the snow and then to the sky. The snowflakes were flying in the sky as the wind blew. The lonely snowland seemed to be as cold as usual. Since the fierce battle, the appearance of the ice mountains, glacier, and ice towers had changed. Everything had changed. However, how many people would know the reason? Everything would go back to usual in due time. Non-living things would look the same every year, even after decades. However, the only difference would be the people who looked at them. The ice mountain, the glacier, and the ice towers would appear again. What about humans? Would those who have passed away come back again someday? Difui had been sitting in the snow with her corpse for 3 days and nights until Long Sai arrived with the 4 messengers. Long Sai, who was usually always a polite person, almost cursed all of his ancestors. After he finished lecturing Difui that day, he did not hear a single reply from him. Chapter 1714. 1714 Difui had switched off the jade tablet, but Long Sai did not want to give up. Hence, he tried to contact Difui again while rushing to find him. However, Difui refused to answer the call even though his jade tablet had blinked a few hundred times. He almost drove Long Sai nuts. Long Sai was not as powerful now, and he was before. Therefore, he could not set the speed of his vehicle to the maximum. Otherwise, he would freeze to death. Fortunately, he bumped into the 4 messengers along the journey who were looking for their lord. Hence, they were rushed over together. Long Sai had a bad feeling about everything, but he still tried to be a little hopeful. What if Gu Shijio won the battle in the wizardry barrier? Perhaps she would not die if she won the battle. Perhaps Difui would treat her injuries. Perhaps he went through the snow and wind with that small hope and finally found Difui and Gu Shijio, who almost turned into 2 ice sculptures. Difui was sitting in the snow with his legs crossed. His whole body and face were covered by snow to the extent he looked like he had become part of the ice mountains. The one he hugged tightly in his arms was Gu Shijio. Difui got her well taken care of, as there was not even a single snowflake on her face. Her face was as white as snow, her lips were pale, her eyelashes were black, as though she was sleeping tightly in his embrace. Long Sai was shocked by the scene, and his mind went blank instantly. Certainly, he knew Gu Shijio was dead because he was the medical expert in this era. She was dead, even though her body was still soft and her appearance still looked exquisite. Difui's forehead was leaning against her forehead, as if he was whispering to her. He carefully wrapped her in his embrace and used his body to block all the snow from her, as though she would wake up soon and be fine. He knew that she liked to be in his embrace. However, he had not hugged her or let her rest in his arms since they had broken up. Now, he could hug her however he wanted. Unfortunately, she could never feel it anymore. Long Sai's eyes turned red. His blood was boiling and gushed up to his head. Without waiting any longer, he rushed over rapidly and hit Difui. Bast *RD. You've killed her. Are you happy now? In fact, the 4 messengers were shocked by the scene too. They were shocked because they did not expect Long Sai to have the courage to attack their lord. Unfortunately, it was too late when they were about to stop him. They quickly closed their eyes and waited for Long Sai to be thrown far away. After all, Long Sai's kung fu was too lousy compared to Difui's. It was not an exaggeration at all, even if they described the differences between them as heaven and earth. Bang! Long Sai's indeed hit Difui's back. Difui's body slightly trembled and blood dripped from the edge of his mouth. Long Sai could not believe that he did not set any wizardry barrier to protect himself. The 4 messengers were equally stunned. Mufong was the first to respond. Thus, he immediately leaped to stop Long Sai, who still wanted to attack Di Fui. Meanwhile, Mu Yun, Mu Jian, and Mu Lei quickly knelt in front of Di Fui. "My lord!" Di Fui's face was pale like an ice sculpture. His eyelashes were covered with snow, and he was sitting there motionless without saying a word, as though he was dead too. None of the four messengers have their lord in such a state. Certainly, they were sad as well as Gu Shijio passed away. However, they were panicked when they saw their depressed lord. Mu Yun moved forward as he knelt. "My lord, let's go. Let's go, please." Chapter 1715. 1715. Mu Jian and Mu Lei gave their opinions. "My lord, you shouldn't stay here for too long. Let's head back. We'll figure out what we can do once we return." Mu Feng was very sad, but he still hoped the situation could be changed. "My lord, you could collect her souls and then resurrect her, right?" It was only now that Mu Feng realized how much his lord loved Gu Shijio. So why did he choose to break her heart back then? Long Sai let out a loud, sarcastic laugh. "Resurrect? Huh, how are you going to do it? Look, her souls are all shattered. Di Fui, soul collection spell. You knew you could save her, but you just let her souls break into pieces. So, who are you trying to show your pitiful face to now? Don't you think it's disgusting?" That was the first time someone dared to scold the Lord right to his face. Thus, Mu Feng grew angry and frustrated at Long Sai. Initially, he wanted to seal Long Sai's acupoint and make him mute. However, he managed to stop himself when he saw Di Fui's facial expression. Di Fui had not moved or changed his facial expression since they arrived. It was as if he had fallen into his own world and was isolated from everyone. He did not give a single response, as if he had lost his mind. However, his lashes flashed when Long Sai cursed. At this point, Long Sai had gone all out. "Di Fui, Shijio told me that you wouldn't be able to resurrect your beloved if she doesn't die. Because of this, you were panicked until your hair turned white. Although I have no idea how she got this perception, it proved that you really gave her that kind of feeling because she said it in a dream. Now, she is fulfilling your wish and made your dream come true. Ha ha ha. Look, she is such an idiot, isn't she? So, just stop pretending and showing her your pitiful face. This body still looks good, though it was injured before. You can use it to resurrect your beloved after healing the wounds. Don't waste Zygius' effort anymore." Di Fui finally raised his eyelids slowly. "There's no one else," he said. His voice was extremely hoarse, and his gaze looked blank. It was a lie. She was always herself, not anyone else. Long Sai ran out of words. He grabbed his fists tightly as he fixed his gaze on Di Fui. "Then why did you lie to her? Is it really fun to watch her being hurt?" Long Sai yelled. Di Fui mumbled as he looked at her. "Yeah, I lied to her on purpose. I broke her heart on purpose. It's all my fault." Long Sai was getting angrier. He bit his teeth and finally launched an attack toward Di Fui. "Di Fui, I know you've been a bastard all this time, but I didn't know you're also an asterisk shoal." That was a strong attack, and plenty of ice and snow were tossed toward Di Fui's face at the same time. Mu Yun was finally pissed off. He could forget about the attack from Long Sai earlier, but how could he do that again? Did he really think that everyone could simply insult the Lord? Without waiting for another second, Mu Yun launched a beam toward Long Sai with the intention to force Long Sai to withdraw his attack for self-protection. Mu Yun had already achieved a level 10 spiritual power. Hence, Long Sai would not be able to take it if the ray hit him directly. He would probably spit out blood while being tossed away. Suddenly, a white shadow flashed and stopped between Mu Yun and Long Sai. Mu Yun's attack did not manage to fall on Long Sai, but it hit the white shadow instead. At the same time, Long Sai also hit the white shadow rather than Di Fui. Crack! Bang! Two loud sounds were produced. The white shadow immediately swayed. Mu Yun's expression changed instantly. "My lord!" shouted Mu Yun with a trembling voice. Chapter 1716. 1716. Di Fui had been attacked front and rear, and his face was as pale as snow with blood dripping from the edge of his lips. However, Gu Shijio, who was still in his embrace, looked perfect. Di Fui had turned around and left when Mu Yun was about to rush over. He is protected by Shijio. Don't you dare offend him. Long Sai was shaking as he stood still. The despair on Di Fui's face does not look fake. So why did he do this? Why would he get himself into all that trouble? Long Sai was getting furious as he watched Di Fui walk further away. He yelled, Di Fui, why did she get to know you in the first place? It would be great if she did not know you at all. You got involved with her first, but then you dumped her away for no reason. Did you dump her just to watch her die? How unlucky is she to meet you? If she could go back in time, I'm sure she will not ever want to meet you again. Di Fui stumbled for a second. However, he did not turn back, and soon he was gone. His lonely shadow was buried in the snow, and perhaps would never be seen after that. Long Sai was not the only one who had a lot of questions in his head. The fourth messengers were curious too. Why? Why did the Lord do all that? The starry sky shone brightly tonight. There were so many of stars above the sky. Every now and then, there will be stars that are born, and there will be stars that disappear. But does anyone notice this? Originally, there were two big bright stars in the sky. However, one has gone, and the other was about to fall any time now. In a blue garden, all kinds of flowers were blooming. There were two rocking chairs in the garden. At that moment, the two rocking chairs were parallelly placed next to each other, and the two people were also lying on the rocking chair side by side. One was wearing a purple robe with black hair, while the other was wearing a green dress with long black hair as well. One was a male, and the other was a female. Unfortunately, one was alive, and the other was dead. Those are Di Fui and Gu Shijio. One of Di Fui's hands wrapped her in his embrace, while the other hand was holding her hand tightly. That was the intimate interaction they used to have when they were deeply in love. However, he has not done this for a long time. Their fight eventually caused her collapse as she struggled to adapt to life without him. He was similarly sad, and he even had to stop his desire of pulling her into his embrace. Finally, he could now hug her as long as he wished and enjoy the starry sky together. In fact, he knew that she was always looking forward to this. Unfortunately, he could not fulfill her dream when she was alive. Tragically, she will not know anymore. He heaved a sigh of grief as his broken heart cramped. Shijio, let me teach you about astrology, okay? I actually wanted to teach you about this a long time ago, but I just did not have the courage to do so until today. Di Fui whispered. They looked very lovely at that moment, with Gu Zijia's head rested on his collarbone. Shijio, do you see that big star? It is the king's star, and it represents the king of this world. Yeah, this is the one I've once shown you before. At that time, I cast a spell to make it look bright and shiny. In fact, it was going to fall soon. Shijio, do you remember there was another bright star which was almost as bright as the king's star, and you said you wished it could be the star that represents you? Ironically, that is you. You were supposed to be the new king's star. Shijio, the sky could not have two suns, and the people would not need two kings. No one could change it, because this is the natural principle of the world. Di Fui whispered softly while looking up to the sky. Chapter 1717. 1717. When a new king's star rises, the old one will fall. I already knew it since 20 years ago. I knew that I am going to fall after 100 years while the new king's star will be born. Thus, I had to train the new king's star and then immortalize her after passing all the responsibilities to her. I have been living for more than 10,000 years. Hence, I have already gotten used to matters about life and death. Thus, immortalization is nothing to me because I don't really care much about it. However, the only regret I have is never falling in love with someone, even though I have witnessed so many legendary love stories. In fact, I'm eager to know how it feels like to truly fall in love with someone and experience the feeling of being lost in someone's embrace. Di Fui continued, although there's so many girls out there, there's no girl that ever walked into my heart. I did not make any compromises either. The only thing I could do was to wait for the new king's star to be born. The moment when Gu Shijio from General Gus family had been born, something strange happened in the sky. there were some glows of 7-color rays out there. At that time, I was wondering if she was the new king star, so I went there to check it out. I realized that she had a normal physique and a normal look. Furthermore, the 7-colored ray disappeared. I checked on her a few more times, and it still turned out to be the same. So, I concluded that she's just a normal baby. I foresaw that this girl will face a huge life or death situation when she turns 12 years old, and there's a low possibility that this girl can pass through this trouble. Difui covered Gu Shijio with an extra piece of clothing while he was talking. At that time, even though I thought that she was not going to be the new king star, I did not lose hope on her yet. That time, her mother wished to keep her safe, so she begged me to get engaged with her daughter. At that time, I did not care about marriage, and I did not think that she could survive through the fatal situation awaiting her when she turned 12. So I accepted the request of her mother to get engaged with her even though she was just a baby. I had put a seal on her and changed her facial appearance by growing spots on her forehead. The terms and conditions of the marriage were very harsh, as I did not think that she could make it. But somehow, she was possessed by you after she died. Maybe this is what we call destiny. God made you appear in this form. Do you still remember the first day we met? I turned myself into a jade statue to practice asceticism, and that time you came in and took off my clothes, and you even touched me. At that time, I was very angry and amused because it was the first time that I had been molested by someone. So I have decided to find you and take revenge. Shijio, you were as sneaky as a catfish. You always had ways to escape from me. You also successfully drew my curiosity. That was the first time I got so curious about someone. So, at that time, I could not let you go. I even cast a spell on you just to look at how you escaped from me. Your moves always impressed me. Perhaps that was when I fell for you? After that, you called yourself a Heaven's Gift disciple. I had to test you as it was my job. Actually, before I tested you, I already knew that you were not a Heaven's Gift disciple. But I had to run the test as it was my job. I fell in love with you at that time and could not risk your safety. So, I decided to go easy with you on the stage. The result was that you were really not a Heaven's Gift disciple, but a disciple of the Lord. Difui looked at the stars again as his mind was traveling back in time. Shijio, I was already falling in love with you at that time, and I was thinking to marry you after you get out from the dark forest. I wanted to run away with you and was counting how many years we had left. I could still live for nearly 100 years and predicted that you could live until around 80 years old. Chapter 1718. 1718. I loved you, and I knew that I could be with you until the very end. After you pass away, I will be immortalized, but we will have a whole life to stay together, just like an ordinary couple. But Shijio, I never thought that you were the new king star. At that time, I turned myself into Si-chan to be with you and help you navigate out of the dark forest. In the dark forest, you did something that only a new king star is capable of. You could see the starry sky in the dark forest, and you were also capable of seeing the different colors of 8 mountains. At first, when I came to know your identity, I was very shocked and disappointed. Of course, I was happy for you, but I had to change my plan because of your identity. You were no longer immortal. You were the new king star. This meant that your lifespan would be as long as mine. If I marry you, the 100 years of our marriage will just be a small number to you. After the 100 years, you will be sad as you will witness my departure. After that, in your long-lasting lifespan, maybe you will meet someone new who could run away with you. Difui held her hand and said, Shijio, I was very selfish at that time because you were the only woman I loved in my entire life, and I wanted to be the only man you loved in your life. I don't want to see another man enter your life after I passed away. If that were the case, I'd rather let you go. So Shijio, I want to let you go that time, and I really did that. I just wished to protect you and let you grow up as the Lord. But Shijio, I failed. I wanted to hold back my feelings, but I could not. I wished to see you, but when I saw you with Long Sai, I started to get jealous. Long Sai is a Heaven's Gift disciple. According to the rules of this world, the 4 Heaven's Gift disciples that reach level 9 will fall with the old King Star. In other words, Long Sai and a few of them will be following me to our doom. So at that time, I stopped Long Sai from falling in love with you. I even hoped that you loved me instead of Long Sai. Shijio, I was in a dilemma. My mind wanted me to let go of you, but my emotions kept finding excuses to be with you. You surely thought that I was crazy. Difui stared at Gu Zijia's face. He sighed. Shijio, I admit that I am selfish. It was not easy for me to fall so deeply in love with someone. I did not want to let go so easily. And at that time, you said that you did not care whether love lasted for a long time. You just wanted to fall in love before it's too late. I admit that I felt calmer after you said this. I've seen a lot of relationships become weaker after marriage. Couples would fight with each other and decide not to love anymore. I was thinking maybe years after our marriage, we might lose the passion too. Maybe we will break up before I fall. So I decided that I want to treasure the moment now and be selfish, and I'm going to get you by my side. After that, you finally realized that you had fallen in love with me and decided to be with me. I really treasured this opportunity and agreed to get engaged with you to make you my fiancé. But I never thought that the love bracelet would show up at that time. I was very happy as the appearance of love bracelet, which meant that our relationship is predestined. A predestined love is blessed. I started to think that I have chosen the right one. Even God wants us to be together. In the beginning, I did not care about death, but as I spent more time with you, I started to hope that I can live longer so that I can be with you. Chapter 17:19. I even thought that it's fine if I'm not the Lord. He'll just stay by your side as your husband. I thought the love bracelet would change my destiny of falling, and I did try my best to find other solutions. However, there was no other way. I couldn't find any workable solution. Perhaps Difui and Gu Shijio were not supposed to love each other. Perhaps it was a challenge which the new king star ought to go through. She faced plenty of challenges and problems, but he could not just watch her suffer without doing anything because he cared about her. In fact, he had used a few forbidden spells to save her from those troubles, and that shortened his lifespan. Initially, he could still live for 100 years. However, a lot of his power and energy was consumed after using the forbidden spells. Later, when Gu Shijio was kidnapped by Mo Zhao and her body was exchanged, his projected lifespan was less than 30 years. At that time, they really loved each other so very much. He was reluctant to let her go. Therefore, he began to arrange everything for his death. He knew that she would be extremely sad when he passed away some years later, and she would probably be caught in a depression for a very long period. While the only way to prevent her from being depressed was to make her forget about him and begin a new life. At that time, Gu Shijio coincidentally changed to a clone body. It was quite a good body, and it could also be used for more than 30 years. But something happened to that clone body which made Gu Shijio need to return to her original body. Therefore, Difui used his spiritual power to perform a spell on her original body. The spell could make Gu Shijio forget everything about Difui when she resurrected. Then, she would be a new person. The relationship between Lan Jinka and Difui was exactly the same as what Difui told her. Lan Jinka was just his friend, and they never fell in love with each other. No one could find her souls once she was dead. The reason Difui implanted Lan Jink's memories into Gu Zijia's body was that her body could only survive and upgrade automatically in the Sea Palace. He needed a logical reason to make the Lan siblings safeguard Gu Zijia's original body. Besides that, since Shijio would be the new lord and would eventually need to rule the mermaids, it would be advantageous to her if she had part of Lan Jink's memories and continued to be the empress as Lan Jinka. It was equivalent to owning the whole mermaid kingdom without war, and at the same time, she would have a very strong team. Difui did not plan for her to lose all of her memories. She would still remember that she was Gu Shijio. However, she would never remember him, and he would never be in her memories anymore. In her heart, he would be just a passerby to her. She could be the empress of the mermaids if she was willing to be. Otherwise, she could continue fighting on the land until she takes over the throne of the Lord and become the strongest person in the world. Difui had everything well planned, and everything was under his control. Unfortunately, Gu Shijio fled away and ran into a forbidden land, while he also took a risk and entered the forbidden land just to find her. They got married and stayed by each other's side as husband and wife for 8 years in the forbidden land. However, the world was already in chaos when they were out. He just impulsively wanted to stay by her side and be trapped in the forbidden land for 8 years. That indirectly led to the people suffering from the disasters caused by counterfeit celestial masters. In fact, it was very serious misconduct from the Lord, coupled with the fact that he and Gu Shijio killed a fairy from the heavens when they tried to save the people. He received a new punishment from the heavens. After all the rewards and penalties, Difui only had 1 year left to live. Chapter 1720. Initially, Difui planned to spend a good year with her, and then let her return to her original body when it was about time for him to fall. Unfortunately, he did not expect her clone body to encounter a heavenly penalty and turn into a monster that could absorb spiritual power from the people around her. Besides that, the conditions seemed to be getting worse. People will start seeing her as a monster as time went by. Thus, it was also harmful to her soul if she continued to stay inside that body, and it was possible for her to lose control over her mind as well. The only way to save her was to let her return to her original body. Thus, Difui sent her back after spending a day with her in the Crystal Palace. Before this, he had applied a spell on her original body. Hence, he thought that she would not remember him anymore when she returned to her original body. He thought they would never have the opportunity to interact anymore, and the most he could do was to safeguard her secretly and help her to kill Mo Zhao. Therefore, he left right after he sent her to the Sea Palace so that he could get busy with all the work he needed to accomplish in order to return her a peaceful world. He thought that when they met again, he would be just another stranger to her. To his surprise, Gu Shijio had left a special marking on her souls, and she would never lose her memories again. Although she resurrected in her original body, she did not lose her memories. She still remembered him. She ruined all his plans. Because Gu Shijio had a love bracelet on her wrist, she would be able to tell if Difui had died. He could never hide it from her if he did not get rid of the love bracelet from her wrist. Therefore, he was forced to change his plan, and that was how Longjinka was involved in causing Gu Shijio heartbreak. He knew that she was a strong and passionate girl, and she would never be one substitute. Thus, she would definitely ask for a divorce when she finds out he loves someone else. To his sadness, he finally achieved his goal. Gu Shijio asked for a divorce, and the love bracelet finally disappeared from her wrist. She was in pain, and he did not feel good either. It was the pain of being apart and the pain of saying the last goodbye. In fact, it was very difficult to tell which one was worse than the other. She loved him more than herself. Hence, Difui knew that she would probably follow him if he dies. However, she was the new lord. Logical speaking, she would not die, and her wish might not even come true even if she committed suicide. She would be alive, and she would live for several centuries like a zombie and bury herself in pain for a long period of time. However, based on her personalities, if she was betrayed, the first thing she would do was to grow stronger instead of committing suicide. Just like what she experienced when Long Sai betrayed her. She just wanted to be stronger and live to shine. Based on Gu Zijia's characteristics, she would get over it very fast, though she would be depressed from the betrayal. However, she would shine brighter after several years and probably fall in love with someone better and forget about everything between her and Difui. Difui's plan was almost similar to Mo Zhao's analysis. He broke up with her by using the betrayal strategy so that she would hate him and refuse to listen to any news about him. Therefore, she would never know when he dies. He would arrange for the 4 messengers to camouflage him and show up in public once every decade after he passed away as a feint of him being still alive. However, since Gu Shijio would him, she would not pay much attention to him. By the time Gu Shijio would find out about his death, it could already be a few thousand years later. The sky in the Crystal Palace was always blue. Difui was walking on a street covered with crystals, and he passed by many basilicas in the Crystal Palace as he carried Gu Shijio in his arms. This place belonged to him, and her and their footprints could be traced in every single spot of the palace. There was a phrase, Tian Chong Dijio, engraved on a crystal. Some of the engravements were done by him and her. Di Fui and Gu Shijio. There was a big heart with both of their names inside, along with a silver arrow that penetrated the heart. Di Fui had said that it was not a good sign when he looked at it, as the arrow penetrated the heart. But Gu Shijio told him that was the arrow from a Cupid, which represents the eternal love for the two of them. Shijio, I thought my plan would be the best way forward for you, but... Shijio, do you regret knowing me? Honestly, I regret. If I didn't tease you when we just met, we might not end up suffering this great tragedy, and you wouldn't be as hurt like this. Shijio, you don't know that I've never failed you before this. Shijio, I'm really sorry. It's my fault. Shijio, I didn't like this place originally. However, I fell in love with this place since I brought you here. I even wanted to immortalize myself here and slowly disappear. He continued walking with her in his arms, and finally, they arrived in a well-decorated room. That was the most beautiful bride chamber in the world, and it was once her favorite places. Both of them spent their happiest day in there, and it was also the one last time they loved each other. Shijio, Di Fui carefully placed her on the bed and lied beside her. Shijio, you've hinted me several times to propose to you because you wanted to marry me. I'm such a jerk and always pretended and neglected your wish. You must be so disappointed. I owe you a grand wedding. Am I still qualified to propose to you? He held her hand, but she was still lying there with no response. Her eyes were closed as if she was sleeping soundly. However, he understood. He knew she would never come back anymore. He took out a ring. It looked so beautiful and fine with a gem that was as bright as a star. Shijio, do you still remember this ring? You left this ring behind when you fled away from the wedding. I've been keeping it. After we broke up, I always look at it whenever I missed you. He paused when he said that, and then reluctantly smiled as he put the ring on her finger again. Shijio, you look so beautiful with this ring. Di Fui's voice was rather hoarse. Slowly, he held her hand and placed a kiss on the back of her hand. He then put on another ring on his own finger and held her hand tightly. The shadow from the candlelight was twinkling, and both of their shadows were reflected on the bed drape, as if it was their wedding night, and they were back to the honeymoon period. He hugged her in his embrace as he slowly closed his eyes. Why the H*CK did you do that if you knew this is the ending? A golden sentence flashed across Di Fui's mind. It was the firmament stone. It was still coiled on Gu Zijika's wrist. It was sleeping as if it was recuperating, but it had awakened recently. Di Fui could always interact with it. The firmament stone used to utter weird and hurtful things to Di Fui whenever they met. In fact, Di Fui would have sealed its spiritual consciousness and let it continue to hibernate if nothing serious happened. However, regardless of what it said these few days, Di Fui quietly listened without arguing or interrupting, as though he was punishing himself with it. My lord, in fact, you deserve this. Since both of you escaped from the Forbidden Land, you shouldn't have broken up with her. I knew the secret of you falling shouldn't be revealed, because all the karma would fall on her if it were to be leaked out. However, you could still spend a year with her, and both of you would have had a very happy year. Di Fui remained silent. Indeed, he should have done this if he could be selfish. 1 year later, he could escape from heartbreak because he would know and feel nothing when he immortalizes. However, what about her? She would probably collapse when she finds out her beloved just passed away all of a sudden. If a couple was meant to go through such a cruel experience of being apart forever, the one who passes away would be free, but the one who is alive would be suffering. Especially in this case, when Gu Shijio would live for a long time. The pain and grief would continue until the end of her life. He did not want her to experience such cruel pain. Hence, he decided to carry out his plan. Perhaps it was destiny, and there was nothing Di Fui could do about it. My lord, I heard your inner voice. In fact, you did it for her good sake. I'm sure she will be very happy and forgive you if she knows it. Even until the moment before she died, the thing she cared about the most is you, even though you told her you did not love her, and you took her as a replacement. She fought with Mo Zhao in that manner, because she wanted to fulfill your wish, as she did not want to see your hair turn white because of this matter. She always said that she hated you. In fact, she still couldn't let you go, and she still wanted to make your dream come true. Di Fui closed his eyes in disappointment. The firmament stone was right. She would not sacrifice for him if she really hated him. She sacrificed herself just to give away the body so that he could get Longinka back. If she could be slightly more selfish or hate him a little bit more, the ending might be different, but she still loved him wholeheartedly. His heart felt as though it was penetrated by a thread that was slowly pulled tighter and tighter. He held her little hand tightly, as there was nothing else he could do. Her little hand was freezing, so he tried to warm it several times, but none of the attempts worked. "Hey, my lord, are you going to just stay here forever? It's chaos out there. You need to go out and calm him down." Di Fui's eyes remained closed. What does it have to do with him? Even though there was a disaster outside, Gu Shijio was gone. Everything was meaningless to him regardless of whether the world was in peace or chaos. There were only 5 more months to go. He would stay beside her for the coming 5 months because he did not want to be apart from her anymore. He would not let anyone disturb them until the day he immortalizes. The firmament stone seemed to have read his mind. In a panicked state, it shouted, "My lord, you can't do this. The new lord is dead, and if you just immortalize this way, the entire world would collapse and everyone would die." The firmament stone immediately leaped into midair and continuously spun in the air, with an image projected in the air. Inside the image, volcanoes erupted. Many meteorites fell from the sky with a lot of dust that covered the sky and the sun. The day turned into a dark sky, and there was no sunrise. Most of the ground was covered by the seawater, and the victims who were trying to escape were not only flushed away by lava, but also hit by the meteorites and drowned in the floods. It was a scene of the apocalypse. The firmament stone was very patient. "My lord, look, this is the scene after you immortalize. You've been safeguarding this continent for more than 10,000 years. Would you not miss it even if you don't love it? I'm sure you wouldn't want it to be destroyed, right?" Di Fui still remained silent, as though he was meditating. The firmament stone circled his body as it blinked. It played another scene for Di Fui, which showed the little fox and Yinshun. Yinshun and Lan Weihu should have gotten back together, but they were trying to escape from a collapsed ground. However, who could escape from such a terrifying disaster? Although they had very good kung fu, it was not sufficient. Yinshun flew away from the ground with Lan Weihu, and they managed to avoid the lava and floods. However, they did not manage to escape from the falling meteorites, and Yinshun was hit by a giant rock and crashed on the ground when he tried to save Lan Weihu. He fell into a pool of lava, while Lan Weihu screamed aloud as she watched the scene. "Brother Yinshun." Eventually, she jumped into the lava too. Occasionally, Qian Lingyu, Bailey Su Luo Zhanyu, Gu Xietian, Luo Xinglan, and many others appeared in the scene. Many people from Tianju Hall and some of Gu Zijia's friends and relatives were engulfed by all the disasters one by one. It was extremely disgusting and cruel. The firmament stone also added extra audio. "My lord, do you really not care about these people? Shijio cares about them very much. Although they don't deserve to die, they have to die just because of the love between you and her. I'm sure Shijio would be so guilty and sad if they die this way." Di Fui shifted his gaze on the clip as though he was thinking about something. The firmament stone thought the opportunity has come. Thus, it changed the clip. This time, Mu Feng and the other 3 messengers were there with the Lord's maidservants. Certainly, the 4 messengers were important to him. However, the maidservants were also loyal to him, and many other people have risked their lives for him. Unfortunately, none of them made it through disasters. They have tried so hard to improve their spiritual power in order to be his servant. Hence, they certainly did not want to die this way. They screamed in fear, and many of them would shout, "Help us, Celestial Master Zua!" Many scenes right before they died were paused and then zoomed in to enlarge their face. It was intended to show Di Fui their expression. "My lord, do you also not care about these people?" Di Fui looked pale, but he still remained silent. Although he was immune to life and death, he still cared about those people in the cliffs and believed that they did not deserve to die. He could neglect his life, but how about those people? Di Fui shifted his gaze back to the firmament stone. His gaze was firm and sharp. Hence, the firmament stone immediately took a few steps back. "My lord, why do you stare at me this way? I just didn't expect you to know so much." The firmament stone was an arrogant jade, but it was quite humble in front of Di Fui. "I am the firmament stone, though. I know most of the things in the world. Can you see the future?" The firmament stone blinked. "A little." Di Fui's voice turned icy. "So, you already knew what Shijio would go through today?" The firmament stone was shocked. No. Her action was beyond my imagination. I really didn't expect that. In fact, I never thought that she would die." Di Fui's eyes sparkled. "You really think this way too?" "Of course. She is the new lord, the new master of this world. Logical speaking, she wouldn't have died no matter what." Di Fui's gaze looked dim again. It was right. Logical speaking, the Lord wouldn't die unless it was time to go. Back then, he had gone through several very dangerous situations. However, he made it through every single time and even improved his power every time. Sometimes, he was too bored with life. Hence, he even thought of killing himself. From there, he experienced some difficulties and pain, but he could never die. The only way was for the Omen to replace him. "My lord, in fact, I'm also wondering about this. The future lord could be killed by the Omen before she is mature, but she is supposed to be blessed by the heavens once she achieved a level 10 spiritual power. She is not supposed to die before the time comes. However, she is dead this time, and this is strange." The firmament stone circled around Gu Zijia's body and coiled on her wrist for a while. "She is really dead. I cannot feel her soul." Di Fui looked at her in his embrace. In fact, he did not believe that she was really dead. He had tried to call her souls several times before, but did not receive any response. There were only 3 possibilities for this condition. Firstly, she was dead. Secondly, she was reborn. Lastly, she had immortalized. However, he witnessed her souls broken in his embrace. It was impossible for her to still be alive. Also, it would take time for her to be reborn, especially for those whose souls had broken into pieces. They had to gather their souls in order to reborn. Next, they needed to pass the bridge of helplessness and drink Mingpa soup. In fact, the process would take at least half a year to complete. Anyway, her souls were gone, while the third possibility did not seem to fit her case. Immortalization only happens when one's power was ranked at the level of a deity. This was non-reversible and would only happen when the time was right. According to what he knew, a deity would completely disappear once he or she immortalizes. He would disappear from this world, and not even a single soul would be found. Gu Shijio was yet to be a deity, and it was not her time to leave yet. Hence, it was impossible for her to immortalize. The 3 possibilities were flawed, and Di Fui seriously had no idea what was happening. Since Di Fui was deeply in shock, he had been living a messy life recently and was lazy to use his brain. The only thing he wanted to do was to make the world her funeral companion. However, he began to doubt her death since the firmament stone pointed out the information. He looked at the firmament stone and recalled its origin was so special when it came to Gu Shijio. Besides that, it was Gu Zijia's little advisor, and it had some unique functions. Since this fellow was quite chatty and annoying, Di Fui often sealed its consciousness when they spent time together. He did not pay much attention to it, since he knew it was not harmful to Gu Shijio. Finally, he realized this jade was not as simple as he thought. Suddenly, Di Fui focused his full attention on the firmament stone. The firmament stone shivered as he stared at it. "Why did you come to Shijio in the first place?" Di Fui suddenly asked. The firmament stone immediately went stiff. It was a fate. Difui suddenly grabbed it. I want the truth. He grabbed it tightly until the firmament stone suffocated and screamed. Let go. Let go. Watch your action when you talk to an auspicious jade. Otherwise, you will be punished by heaven again. Difui immediately looked at it and caught the key point. Punished by heaven again? What do you have to do with heavenly law? The firmament stone remained silent. It immediately reversed. Don't know. What's heavenly law? Difui remained silent as he stared at it, but his gaze turned cooler now. The firmament was panicked. It was worried that he would squash it into dust if he was upset. It's related to a heavenly secret. I can't tell you. Difui was speechless. He did not expect there was any heavenly secret which he was not aware of. Difui refused to let it slide. You already knew she was the new lord when you found her, right? The firmament stone was speechless. Have you disclosed any heavenly secrets to her? This time the firmament stone was very responsive. Of course not. Otherwise, she will be punished. You should know better, right, my lord? Difui closed his eyes to think. He was so used to getting everything he wanted. Hence, he did not really care about any heavenly punishment. He has also disclosed heavenly secrets and got punished before, but it had all been settled. However, the heavenly punishment would not only fall on the one who disclosed a secret, but also on the listener. There would be a tragedy that would ensue. Therefore, Difui would never disclose any heavenly secrets to the people he cared about in order to prevent them from being punished. The firmament stone was worried that Difui blamed it for causing Gu Zijia's soul to fade away. It quickly explained. I know what to say and what not to say. I've never told her heavenly secret. Difui stopped talking. He closed his eyes as he hugged Gu Shijio tightly. The firmament stone carefully circled around him again as it looked at his posture. My lord, you shouldn't continue sleeping anymore. The world is a mess now. All the disasters I showed you would happen if you continue to behave this way. What should I do then? Difui opened his eyes. There are 5 more months to go. Do you think the heavens would assign another new lord with a level 10 of spiritual power again? Perhaps. The firmament stone hesitated to continue. I feel you should check the stars. Difui stared at it for a while. Did you sense something again? The firmament stone immediately ran away. I can't disclose. Difui came to the backyard again with Gu Shijio. He was stunned when he looked at the starry night. There were dark clouds in the sky, and he found a strange star in the clouds. It was a 5-colored star. Though it looked big, it was quite dim. Apparently, it was surrounded by dark clouds. Hence, it could not shine. That was a substitute lord? To his surprise, there was a substitute lord. It seemed that heaven did not want this continent to be destroyed. Difui clenched his fingers as he looked at Gu Shijio, who was in his embrace. The throne of the new lord belonged to her. The firmament stone was so excited. My lord, look, there's a substitute lord. You just have to find him or her and pass everything on. Then the world would be saved. Therefore, my master would not get a mess when she returns. Difui was shocked. What did you just say? Your master returns. Oh, F***CK. The firmament stone was panicked. Damn it. It seemed to have disclosed a heavenly secret. The firmament stone took a few steps back. I meant our new lord. There would be a new lord sooner or later. The substitute lord could only take over for 300 years, right? Difui grabbed it as he grunted. Are you sure you don't want to tell the truth? Did the firmament stone take him for a fool? The firmament stone still refused to spill the beans. My lord, heavenly secrets are always highly confidential and are not allowed to be disclosed. Otherwise, you will face a tragedy. I'm not afraid. Tell me, don't you forget that I can also predict heavenly secrets. Hence, it's not considered as leaking even if you tell me. You've gone against the heavenly laws several times now. That's why you're not aware of this. The firmament stone was upset as it answered. Difui looked at it with an icy gaze. So what you showed me earlier is not a heavenly secret? The firmament stone could not respond. That was just a forebode. That shows the consequences if you continue to waste your time. Difui remained silent as he stared at it. Did it mean to say that incidents which were possible to happen would not be considered as a heavenly secret? Who the *CK was this idiot trying to fool? Did it really think that Difui did not know the meaning of a heavenly secret? The firmament stone became more concerned as the conversation went on. Finally, it told part of the truth. Since my master is the new lord, she would not immortalize or die before the end of her life. She committed suicide using a forbidden spell without approval, and that is considered against the heavenly laws because she destroyed the world's balance. Hence, she deserves punishment. The punishment of the heavenly law is to let her reborn after several years with all of her memories, and she would know that you had fallen. Besides that, she would have nightmares about the past every single night so that all of her memories would feel as though it just happened yesterday. That was too ruthless. Difui's face turned pale. Carry on. The firmament stone did not hide anything anymore. If you just leave the world behind and cause it to be destroyed, she would need to oversee a disastrous continent when it's time for her to take over. All of her friends would be dead, and she would live with regret and hatred. What is worse than being restricted from dying and being tasked to rebuild the entire continent until the heavens are satisfied with her performance? Only then would she be allowed to die and finally be free from suffering. Difui was extremely angry. Crack! A strong table beside Difui was broken into pieces. I was the one who broke the rules. Why should she deserve the punishment? The firmament stone trembled and agreed. You're right. It's indeed unfair. It also thought the heavenly laws were too harsh. It was helpless and sincerely felt that was too much for its master. Difui closed his eyes, and his fingers were moving in his sleeves as if he was trying to predict something. A moment later, he opened his eyes, and his gaze fell on the firmament stone. I think the heavens got you to threaten me with her safety. The firmament stone remained silent. Perhaps it was true. The firmament stone did have such a doubt, too. It carefully asked, So, are you? Difui hated to be threatened, and no one would succeed in threatening him. Moreover, he has been breaking the rules for so many years. Why would he obey this time? What should I do? Difui seemed to be more relaxed now. The firmament stone heaved a sigh of relief. My lord, listen to me. It then told him a series of tasks while Difui quietly listened to everything. Casually, he said, I can do all of these, but all the punishments on her should be waived. If someone must be punished, they'll take it all on myself. The firmament stone shone and blinked for a short while. Apparently, it was delivering certain messages to Difui. A moment later, several characters were flashed in Difui's head again. As long as my lord does a good job and the world is peaceful, her punishment will be waived. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.